This is Unapologetic on WOVU 95.9 FM. This is Eric King. Yeah, we had to get it started. I've been away for roughly a couple weeks now. So getting back in the groove of things and all that other fun stuff. So I appreciate everybody who is out there listening. We are live on IG. We are also live on Facebook. So if you're out there, you also should see a number. If you're available, you can go ahead and give me a text at 216-243-9636. So what we're going to do, we're going to do something a little different today. So we are going into that holiday season. And in going into that holiday season, one of the things that I get as a therapist is how do I go through this holiday season in a healthy way. So what I really want to do today is talk about healing. So around this time, we usually talk about healing. We talk about healing often in our community. And so this is our time today. What I'm going to actually do is put myself on the couch today. So I'm going to, talk about my journey of healing. And then from talking about my journey of healing, I'm also going to talk about some of the clients that I see in my practice. As you know, or some of you guys may know, I've been a mental health professional for a little over 20 years now, so over 2 decades. So in that 2 decades time, I've had the luxury, and I'm gonna go ahead and say luxury, I've had the luxury to work with well over 50,000 clients. And I know that may sound like a bit much, but I've worked at the hospitals, I've worked for community mental health agencies, and as some of you may also know, I have my own private practice. And in my practice, I do a lot of work with men specifically recently this year. And so I've had the luxury, like I said, to work with individuals and treat individuals that have myriad of struggles. One of the main struggles that they have is healing. And what does that look like to heal, to allow yourself to be open? And definitely around this time where we talk about some loss, we talk about some hard times that we may be going through. So we have the pressure during this holiday period, not only, 365 days, but on Christmas, we want to make sure that everybody knows that we are doing our very best and we are showing our kids, our loved ones. And a lot of times we're going into bankruptcy and we're going into just overall struggle, just simply attempting to show as if what we're doing and who we are is, matches somebody else's expectation. And so after the holidays, not only are we dealing with the emotional toll if we have a difficult family that we are part of, we're also dealing with the emotional toll of finances. And so a lot of that comes from healing. A lot of that comes from the inability to say no. One of the things that I say and people laugh about, that no is a complete sentence. But that doesn't negate or stop individuals from struggling and wanting to do more and feel as though they need to do more. So today we're going to talk a little bit about healing. This is, I'm going to put myself on the couch. This is one of the few times that I'll allow myself to be on the couch, so to speak. And one of the few times that I do a solo show. So what I'm going to do first, like I always do with my solo shows, I come on, I give a little bit, that way I get my jitters out, because yes, although I am a mental health provider, I do also struggle and also get jitters, especially when I'm doing something like this, which I'm not trained to do. This is something that, big shout out to Burton Bell Carr, as well as Jay and Uni. DJ Chris Styles, they give me the opportunity to do this. So we're going to take a quick break, and I'm going to come back and we're going to start this healing journey, or we're going to start this healing process. And I'm going to allow myself initially to be the client, and then we're going to jump into more helping ideas and how we as individuals can help one another get through the healing process. So we're going to take a quick break, and this is Unapologetic with Eric King on WOVU 95.9 FM. Hey, welcome back. Unapologetic with Eric King on WOVU 95.9 FM. All right, so let's get into it. A little while ago, I had one of my close friends on, Tyra Hill, and a lot of times you guys don't get a chance to hear the the pre-discussion. What you guys hear is the discussion related to, what we choose to, put on air. So before that episode that was with Tyra, she and we haven't talked in like a year. And during that time, in between the time that she and I had spoke and the time that she came on the radio, there's a lot that happened. When I went, so Tyra is somebody that I met when I was working at, I believe it was PEP. And so she and I kicked it off really well because she was, if you know Tyra, she has a healing. Her agency is called To Attain Healing. So she has a healing mantra. She has a healing mentality. She is someone that cares in ways that you wouldn't believe. So when she and I was talking, like I said, I met her at PEP, and she and I met, and we hit it off. And so we always kept in contact. And sometimes when we felt a little, especially if you are an individual that works in the helping profession, you often will go through burnout. You will have times in your career where you will choose not to. You will choose not to be to care as much, and we call that compassion fatigue or burnout or whatever have you. And having individuals that you work with that allow you to be who you are and be open and honest is something that you as a professional really need, as a practitioner really need. And that was someone, but it wasn't just Tyra. I had a bunch of I had Robert McFadden. I had a bunch of people there, but her and I really hit it off. So let me go backwards. So when she and I was talking, last time I saw her, my organization was going through a restructuring. And when I say I was depressed, I was depressed. I was on the way of closing the organization, and I was on my way of, booting everybody out. So in between the time that she and I spoke, as well as the time that she came on the radio show, I had started therapy. And what I found in therapy, and yes, if you are going to a therapist and your therapist don't have a therapist, you might want to ask them to do a little something different. But at any case, when I went to therapy, there's a couple things that stood out that coincided with how I created my business model. One of the things that stood out was, one, my parents never picked me. So what that basically means is, what we found out is along this interesting journey of mine, there has been a time when I've wanted people to pick me. I've asked people to pick me. I've created personas, for individuals to, pick me. And along the way, what I was actually dealing with was not only what was going on and what I was experiencing in my life, but I was also experiencing some latent trauma that have come from, my life and my parents. So my parents, are individuals that didn't grow up all that great, which means that they didn't have the very best emotional IQ or, emotional, wherewithal. I do recognize right now that my parents were simply doing exactly what they needed to do in order to get me to where I needed to be, right? I am 50. I just turned 50 this year. I grew up during the gang age, crack age, AIDS, everything that you can imagine during that time, right? Being a lock key kid is not a good thing, right? You're supposed to have parents there or someone there to actually, watch over you, especially when you're 5, 6, 7 years old or even younger. So, I grew up in a way, and I'm an only child, I grew up in a way that was more about survival than it was actually about emotional growth or anything else. So I really truly believe that my parents simply did the best that they could do. And I hold no ill will. With that said, when your parents don't pick you, while they're still raising you or while you're still there as a human being, there's something that happens to you on the inside, and there's something that happened to me on the inside. So the first point that came up in therapy is, one, my parents never picked me. So that's one. The second thing that came up during therapy is that I suffer from abandonment. And so because of the first point, that abandonment piece was there with me. So when anyone would leave, right, I would instantly believe that it was my fault. I instantly believed that it was something that I had did and something that I had done. And so oddly enough, to go back to Tara, or Tyra, Tara and Tyra, it's all right. It's T Money, it's T Hill. What came up, during our talk before she went on, was the fact of I found that I built a complete business model at my private practice on individuals leaving me. And when individuals, when I got to a certain point in 2022 where we're at the end of that year, I think we almost netted. We netted roughly in revenue $422,000 in 1 year. Now, let's put this in perspective. The mental health organization or the mental health field has to follow a specific rules of billing. If you choose as a mental health provider to actually accept insurance, you have to follow what they say or what they are contracted for. For example, there's one organization that literally pays us as professionals $60 an hour per session. That's $60, right? That's one. Now, mind you, this insurance company, you're paying your premiums, right? You're paying everything, and everything is being paid on time. And you're going to go see a licensed professional. And you're going to go see that licensed professional, and you're going to present your insurance to that licensed professional. And when you present your insurance to that licensed professional is going to, because they're in the helping profession, going to make a choice. Either I'm going to see this person for $60 an hour, which some may believe is a lot, $60 an hour, or I'm going to go over to another large bring in another large insurance company that is in Ohio that pays me to do the exact same thing, $125 an hour, which means I'm the same person, right? I am the same person. And by being that same person, I'm going to give each individual that's in front of me the exact same quality of care. But the insurance companies, if I choose to accept insurance, are going to pay me different. I have one Ohio insurance company that's going to pay me $60. I have a whole nother insurance company that is going to pay me $125. And this is the kicker. If I choose to charge a processing fee, if I choose to charge a fee for anything else, I am what's called in breach of contract. So that means that no matter what, if I want to be above board and do everything that I need to do, I need to ensure that I'm following my contract to the letter of the law. So when I say that I'm bringing in 1 year in 2022, $422,000, we're working hard for that $422,000. In 2022, there's an interesting thing that was happening and converged all at the same time. One, my practice was thriving while people were leaving me, and I was attempting to figure out what was going on with me without realizing I had completed or I had created a whole business model on individuals leaving me. And so I had to deal with that. And when that came up in therapy, right? So it's two main things. First thing came up in therapy was my parents never chose me. Second thing was I have what's called an abandonment issue. And I created a complete business model on that premise that individuals, because I'm always waiting for someone to leave me, if I'm going to welcome people into my business, I am going to set it up to where them leaving me is on my terms. Now, which sounds pretty cool, But what happens when you don't recognize what you're doing and you're going through, the process of healing or helping other individuals, and you're constantly being triggered? So that's something, if I'm going to talk about my healing journey, that's something that came up. So after telling that story, I spoke to T. Hill, and I spoke to Joy, and she said, you need to tell a different story. And Joy said, you need to tell the story of how you got there. All right, so let me help you out. So I went to University of Akron, and after going to the University of Akron for 4 years, I had finessed the last bit of Pell Grant money or anything or student loan money from University of Akron that I could in 1999. In that same year, my son Christian was born, and I had to make a choice. And what I had to make a choice, my choices were be the type of dad that I felt that my dad was, right? He wasn't around, typical story, or figure out a way to actually be a better dad or a better representation of a father to my son that I didn't get. Lo and behold, in 1999, I chose to leave. And when I chose to leave, let me be perfectly candid with you. And when I tell this story, individuals don't necessarily grasp the gravity of this. When I told that story, or when I tell this story, and I tell this part of the story, they don't believe me. I graduated from high school with less than a 12th grade reading ability. And the only reason I picked computers when I went to the University of Akron was because it had math. When I was asked to leave the University of Akron, I had to figure out what to do, and I had two choices. One was being a teacher. The second was being a mental health provider. I didn't want to take the praxis test at the time, and that's where teachers take that test. I didn't want to take the practice test at the time. And so what I chose to do was I chose mental health. And so when I chose that, I knew that I couldn't read, right? I was done lying. I was done putting up the persona. I was done, putting up anything, that, was, I guess, a way for me to hide. So when I left the University of Akron, I moved in with, some people, and I moved in with family members, and I didn't have anything where I moved into. But I did have a library card. And as cliche as it sounds, I was sitting there and I was watching Tavis Smiley on TV. And Tavis Smiley used to do these things called the State of the Black America. And when Tavis Smiley was doing the State of Black America, he had panelists. He had Sonia Sanchez. He had Dr. Eddie Glaude. He had a myriad of intellectuals, and they were all black. And so what I did that year is I read every book that they had, that the panelists had written. By the time that I got done with that list, the next thing that I did was I signed up for classes at Tri-C. Once I signed up for classes at Tri-C, my very first class was the world religion class. And during that class, that world religion class, my professor walked in. And when he walked in, he stated, if you know my religion at this moment, or any time that you're in this class, I have done my job wrong. And that's where I began to look at religion in a completely different way. And so my healing journey, or my journey of healing, had to do with learning how to read, understanding that I had a deficit, and that deficit was I had an emotional imbalance in how I view family. And I have to be perfectly honest. My scars of healing shows up every day. On the air, it most recently showed up with my co-host. So shout out to Steph Kells. So with my co-host, before we went on the air that day, I had therapy that day. I got up, and when I got up, I took my son to the bus stop. And if you know, I went on the day after the election. My son got into the car that morning, and I purposely didn't watch anything on the election. that day. Son got in the car and he stated, "You know who won the election?" And I said, "No, son, who won the election?" I went to bed. "You know, Trump went to the election, won the election." And I didn't say anything, but I had an emotional presence there. Went to therapy that day. And in therapy, I wasn't there. And what I mean by I wasn't there, I wasn't emotional there. I just sat there. So my therapist is also a black woman. So we sat there and we basically, commiserated together, so to speak. And we sat there and, during that hour, and I talked about some of the most darkest times in my life. I talked about how, it appears as if my relationships end quickly with people. It appears as if I'm an individual that is ugly, that individuals choose not to be around, right? So, during that time, right before I went onto the show, I, emptied out everything. And I have to be perfectly honest. I believe that emptying was 100% related to the apathy I felt for our country and the apathy I felt for myself in being a member of the black male population. And so I emptied out everything. And when I emptied out everything, at the end of it, I didn't necessarily go through the putting it back together. So when you go through therapy, there's a process that you go through. You unpack everything, right? You look through it. And while you're looking through it, you're picking out things that needs to be talked about. And so one of the things that was talked about that day was, like I said, that concept of ugliness, that concept of once again not being chosen, that concept of just all around emotional pain. And I have to admit, maybe 75% of what I felt was, once again, the country was not going to select, it was not going to once again select, in my opinion, someone who was more qualified than the one that they picked. And I couldn't deal with that because I had been through so much. And I believed in a lot of things that this country is, and that things that I believe that it is. I believe that if you work diligently enough, you will prosper, right? Because, like I said, I'm a product of that. I worked diligently enough. I created a practice. I'm married. I have kids. We have an okay living. But in that moment, during my therapy session, there was absolutely no redeeming qualities of me or my country at the time. And so I left. And when I left, right, so the last thing that you're supposed to do, you go through, you put it out, you find what's significant, then you put it back together and you find the purpose, right? That day we didn't do that. And I don't blame my therapist, right? Because she's an amazing therapist. She has helped me out in ways that is unimaginable. I blame myself because I went from my therapy session to the radio station. And if anyone listened that day, I became triggered when my co-host began to discount individuals who didn't follow her schema. And once again, what I felt and what happened to me in that moment, I became triggered and I was back in not being selected, right? I was back in my trauma brain of my mom and dad not picking me. I'm back in my trauma brain of my, those that I'm working for, or I'm sorry, those that are working under my umbrella. I'm feeling as though they're taking advantage of me because I'm trying to keep them around. I'm giving them like 70%, 90% of the revenue that they're giving. And they're still like, no, that's not enough, right? So I became triggered. And when she began to do that, I was no longer me. And that has happened frequently. So we're going to take a quick break. And on the other side, we're going to jump into this idea of healing. I appreciate whomever's listening. You stayed this long and listened to me, and I do appreciate that. And I also appreciate the time that, has been allowed for me to go through this process and go through this moment. Because, like I said, this is something that I had to come to grips with, and I had to remember once when you're in therapy and you come to grips with certain thing, the very first thing that happens are all of the individuals that you have harmed while you were hurting. And I couldn't, I just couldn't. It was a point in my life where I did a lot of negative things, and those negative things were mainly towards people in order for me to feel better. And so when you go through your healing process and you go through your recovery and you're going through that process, you remember, because it's never gone, you remember all the people that you harmed, and you remember all the things that you did in order to simply, be viewed as significant. And it's just simply amazing how your brain never forgets anything that you have done. I'm talking about family members. I'm talking about things that, I knew for a fact that in that moment, because I just needed, right? I needed a car. I needed this. I needed money. I needed a place to stay. I needed somebody to believe that I was important. I needed. And in that moment, when I began to remember everything, I have to be honest with you, I really thought about killing myself. I 100% thought about suicide, because as a person that is remembering all of the things that they did in order to simply be chosen or be selected or be viewed as important, it was devastating. And in that moment that it all came rushing back, I had to, in that moment, I had thoughts of suicide, right? I had thoughts of abandoning my family. I had thoughts of abandoning myself. And I had thoughts of no longer being around, simply because I truly felt as if all of the things that I had did in my phase of attempting to, be significant or to be chosen or to be viewed in a certain way, I did all those things, and they just kept running back, and my heart began to hurt and my mind began to hurt, and all I wanted to do was run. And then in that moment, I remember writing in my journal, this is the last day that I'm going to write in this journal. I have broken up with depression, and I no longer feel as though you are something that I need. And in that moment, I stopped journaling. I stopped writing of certain depressive acts. I stopped thinking certain depressive thoughts, because it was time for me to break up with that part of me so that the other half of me or the other aspects of me could live. So that's so we're gonna take a break. We're gonna pay some bills, because I've been talking for a very long time, and I want to go ahead and just make sure that I am honoring my responsibilities to Burton Bell Carr, Jay, Uni, and everybody else that's listening, and ensuring that I'm making it more about the public and less about myself. So we're going to take a quick break, and this is Unapologetic with Eric King on WOVU 95.9 FM. What up? This is Unapologetic on WOVU 95.9 FM. So I just found out that none of what I said in that first segment was heard online, which was hilarious. So hopefully people can hear me now. So what I do is over here, I record so that I can upload it to Facebook and all that other good stuff. But on the system that I use, I didn't unmute. I didn't unmute my system. So people are online on, on Facebook, and they, graciously told me that they couldn't hear me. So if you want to hear me, you can either, if you can't, you can go to wovu.org and select the listen live, or you can go to Talk to E King on IG, and you can bring that up, or on Facebook, you can go to my page. But it's hilarious that I just went through all that, and no one heard it online. That is, but If you so in a couple days, I'll have it actually uploaded to the Unapologetic YouTube channel, and we'll go through there. I mean, you can go through and listen that way. But let's talk about this healing. So let's first start off with this 5 steps of healing. So when me as a clinician, I like to operationalize everything. Let me say this. In this day and age where everybody's a coach, everybody is a soft ear, and everybody wants to be a therapist, just know that the true mark of a therapist is not simply someone who gives you homework, but also one that tells you in the beginning of therapy that you start therapy in order to end. If you do not have a therapist, if you have a therapist and that therapist doesn't tell you my job is to put myself out of work, then you might need to get you a new therapist. So when I'm working with someone, I operationalize everything. I make 3 steps for the founders, Blue Phi, to all my Phi Beta Sigma members, and also do it in 5s. And I'm the number 5 of my line of tragedy. So shout out to my Lion brothers. At any case, I'm either doing 3 things or 5 things. So let's start off with the 5 steps of healing. And when we're talking about healing, we're literally talking about going through the process of dealing with what you have gone through or you have done, as well as what other people has done to you or for you. And when we want to go through the healing process, or when I'm urging you to go through the healing process, remember, it's never something that stops. It is always something that moves forward and is constantly growing and this and that. So a lot of times my clients have come back to me and they say, well, I thought I've already healed from that. And what I've stated is you have healed the scar, but it's still going to itch from time to time. Meaning this thing that you've gone through is just like a broken limb. When you go through the healing process, your body remembers. So why does my scar still itch? It still itches because you're still alive. And as long as you allow yourself to continue to be alive, the more you will allow yourself to heal. And let me be perfectly honest, you're going to actually feel the constant pressure and the constant itching of the things that you went through. As I said in my first segment, for those that actually did hear, when everything came back to me of the things that I had done, so to speak, with, to my family or to friends or to anything, and let's be perfectly honest, somebody that, hears what I've done, they're going to say, oh, that's not as bad as A, B, and C. It's not about comparison. It's simply about the person that I did not need to be in that given moment, or I chose not to be in that given moment. So your scars itch just like anything else, because it's a constant reminder to stay on the road. I like to actually call it as God, right? God tells you, when you forget about God, when you forget about, the Almighty, when you forget about your Creator, that Creator brings you back to your understanding of who you are and who you're supposed to be. And when you are itching, what I need you to simply do is say thank you. Thank you for allowing me to remember that I am healed, and I know that I can be that person once again. And so what I want you to do is now, moving forward, I want you to remember that it's okay for your ailments to happen. It's okay for you to itch. It's okay for you to remember the things that you have stumbled on, because for one, you were born into an imperfect world to imperfect beings, and you are imperfect, which means that you're going to do things that are going to be problematic, and you're going to do things that are going to need healing. So when you have that itch is a great thing. That itch is something that tells you are alive, that tells you that you still exist. My brother Rick Coble, he's no longer itching. And if you listen to, the suicide, the black male suicide, I referenced Rick Coble. He was someone who was struggling. And I understood his struggling when I remembered, or when the flash of things, came back to me of the things that I struggle with. So when you are healing, and that scar is there, that emotional scar, that mental scar, sometimes that physical scar, even that spiritual scar, it is to remind you of what you've been through, what you're capable of, and who your God is in your process of healing. Now, what levels of healing am I going to talk about? We got mental healing, We got spiritual healing, we got physical healing, and we have community healing. And I'm going to go ahead and kick in spiritual healing. And when I talk about community healing, that community healing is literally wherever you are. You are a byproduct of your environment. And by being a byproduct of your environment, you are someone who is both making a positive impact on your community and a negative impact on your community. And there are individuals that are part of my community as a male, my community as a black person, my community as any other demographics that I have to be cognizant of and go through the healing process. Now, what do we need to heal? Good question. We need to heal any and everything that we feel is significant in our life. I know that's broad and that's not something that, is specific. What I mean by that, there are common things that comes up in our life, right? I truly 100% believe that there is no such thing as coincidence. There's no such thing as accidents. When you see something, right? Deja vu. When you see something out into the world, that something is trying to tell you something. The only reason why you don't or you choose not to listen is because of your ignorance. And what I mean by ignorance is not something that is negative about you. What I'm basically saying is you are choosing not to pay attention to the signs that the universe, God, or whatever you call it, is attempting to tell you. And if you're coming in contact in relationships, romantic relationships, with the same type of person, that is something that needs to be healed. If you're coming in friendships and you are having the same type of friendships, that is something to be healed in relationships. If you're having money issues and you're constantly nickel and diming yourself and you've gone to college, that needs to be healed. So when we're talking about items or things that need to be healed, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about the things that keep coming up in your life. We're talking about the things that people keep telling you that you might need to go see somebody about. The people keep providing you with the information, and your ignorant behind is choosing not to pay attention. And so those are the things that we need to actually heal. Now, let's go through the process of healing, because I only got 15 minutes left, but we gonna get through this. So let's go through the 5 steps of healing. So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna take our usual 45-minute break. Our usual break at the 45, and then we're going to come back. So I'm going to slow down a little bit. All right, let's do it. All right, so 5 steps of healing. All right, you can't heal or it can't be revealed what you don't know. So the very first step is reveal only to yourself the harm you have endured. What I mean by that is there's no need to put this stuff on social media. There's no need to put this stuff out there into the world, because all you basically doing is being performative. Reveal to yourself the things that continue to come up in your life, whether it is a romantic relationship, money, the people you are coming in contact. That's what you need to do. Reveal to yourself. Be honest. Stop playing with yourself, right? You're talking to yourself in your head while believing that thing inside of you is either lying to you or some magical being. Let's be real. That's simply you. So step 1, reveal it to yourself only. Don't ask for help. Second, have compassion for yourself. Remember, I said after it was revealed to me that, some of the themes and the harm that had come to me in my life that I'm still harming, right? I'm still doing it. But I'm more focused on it. As I was going through that process, the very first thing that I wanted to do was run and escape. So the second step is have compassion for yourself. If I had not had compassion for yourself, I would not be sitting in this seat today. I would not be around. My wife would be a widow and my kids would not have a father, because I felt compassionless and wanted to not be around any longer. So the second thing is have compassion for yourself. Third thing, understand that your new normal, and you understand that you have a new normal, and you have to allow yourself to gain strength and courage in your new normal. And a lot of times this comes up in loss. So what you're literally doing if we're going to look at it based off of death. You're killing or you're letting go of your old self, and you're going through the grieving process of your new self. And when you go through the grieving process of your new self, you are going through the healing process. And in that healing process, you have to recognize that you need to let go and let God, but you also need to let go and understand that you have a new normal. And in that new normal, you have to, number 4, restructure your life. You have to let go of things and individuals that are providing you 100% of pain, as well as adding to your reason for causing harm. Case in example, when we're working with addiction, there are 3 levels that we focus on: people, place, and thing. When someone is struggling with addiction, they don't go back to using that substance because of the addiction, because of the disease. They go back because they're lonely. And when they go back to it, it's usually people, those that they used with before, that bring them back, places, bars, friends' houses, or things, TV shows, or paraphernalia that they have laying around. These are the reasons why people relapse. They don't relapse because they don't have willpower. There's no such thing as willpower. They don't relapse because they're weak. They don't relapse because they're unable to do for themselves. They relapse for one reason, which is they have not disconnected from the people that they need to disconnect from. All right, so I went over a little bit. So let me go ahead and do a quick break and come back. This is Unapologetic on WOVU 95.9 FM. Yeah. Let's wrap this up before they get rid of me. First, I want to give a huge shout out to my family members that are listening to me. Tanya and Aunt Della, thank you for listening, and all the frat members and some of the cats that I met in college that met E. King, who didn't meet Eric. That's my man Rod. We got Orlando checked in, Vincent, Keith, Quincy Bunch, who used to be my singing partner when I was at Bedford. So little known Black History fact, I was in a singing group, so little known Black History fact. All right, so let's go through this healing process to go through and get things going, and because I got 10 minutes. All right, so first one, so 5 steps to healing. Number one, reveal it only to yourself. Right. And what I mean by that is get a therapist, get someone, don't make it performative. Number 2, have compassion for yourself. Like I told you, when I began to remember all the things that I went through, I 100% wanted to not be around anymore. So you gotta be kind to yourself. Next, 3, you got to understand you got a new normal. And in understanding you got a new normal, number 4, you got to restructure your life to fit your new normal. And sometimes that means moving. Sometimes that means going away from the people that you thought was there to protect you. Somewhere along that lines, you have to, get away from some of the things that have caused you, the people, places, and things that have caused you distress and fed into your unhealed nature. And then number 5, give yourself permission to thrive. There's so many people in my practice that, grew up under the idea that failure was never an option. And so when you go through this process of healing, and you're going through this process of reconnecting with the people that you care about, or the people that cared about you, or the family members, or anyone who invested something in you. When you go through that process, while understanding that you have failed as a human being. You have failed as a person. You have failed as someone who provided connection for other people and relationship for other people, because there are people that have viewed you as someone of importance. So you have to recognize that you have failed. In failing, if you were never taught that there are times when failure is possibility, you will believe that there's no coming back from it. You will believe that it's time for you to die. You will believe that there's no redeeming factor. So you have to give yourself the permission to thrive. And a lot of times when you're going through that healing process and you've recognized that you've harmed people, you want to pour that into communities that you harmed or people that you harmed. And all that basically does is provide more of an issue for you. It doesn't necessarily help, because now you're no longer making what you're doing, the volunteering, the activism. You're no longer making it about the people that you're attempting to support. You're now making it about you and your healing process. So that's where I say, when you're going through the process of healing, you have to provide yourself the opportunity to thrive. Meaning you have to say, yeah, I did that. That was messed up. Now it's time for me to move on. All right, let's go through it again. Reveal it to yourself. 1. 2, have compassion for yourself. 3, understand that you have a new normal. 4, you got to restructure your life, which means cutting people off. And number 5, give yourself permission to thrive, although you have wounds and those wounds itch. Remember, your wounds are simply God telling you, you need remember what you did and remember where you're from. And I'm not sure if anybody caught the new special for Jamie Foxx. What I really enjoyed about that is, and it's a bit of controversy as he talks about it, is that he said he had a conversation with God, and he said, I'm Jamie Foxx. Why are you doing this to me? And he said, look at all these other people that have done wrong. He said, those other people don't belong to me. You belong to me. And this right here is the thing that you need to go through in order for you to actually heal. So if anybody get a chance to listen to that, go ahead and listen to that. So let's talk about the 3 ways or the 3 things that, the 3 hurdles that are going to get in your way of healing. Number 1, the lack of self-awareness. All right. So in this day and age, we choose to silo ourselves in a way that we only receive the information from the people that we deem as, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Worthy of correcting us. You cannot become self-aware when the people that you are connected to are providing you the exact same information that is causing you to harm other people. So that means you have to be okay with getting away from your silo. You have to get away from your silo. You have to get away from those that are providing you negative information, because your self-awareness meter is going to be a narcissistic meter. It's going to be a me meter. So that's number 1. You have to gain self-awareness, and a lot of times that goes finding new individuals, or even telling those individuals, you have the permission to correct me. You have the permission to provide me with correction. And so that's number 1. So what we're looking at are the 3 hurdles of your healing. 1, a lack of self-awareness. 2, believing you should be better. Now, should, would, could is a nasty construct. It's a construct because it only does one thing. It creates a fantasy world for you to actually be in that perpetually knocks you over your head. Once again, if you have a therapist and that therapist keeps allowing you to bring up would, could, shoulds, might need a new therapist, because that individual is helping or not helping, is allowing certain things to come up. If they're not saying to you that would, could, should is only a construct, because that is not helping you out. That is not providing you growth. That is not providing you, a way to move forward. And then the last thing is distractions. The last hurdle is distraction. So what is a distraction? Family is a distraction. Your wife is a distraction. Your husband is a distraction. Your kids, social media that I'm broadcasting on right now. All these things are a distraction from your growth. And in that process of growing and healing, you will move things, whether it's scrolling at night, which is a distraction, which is, over volunteering, which is also a distraction. Any distraction that keeps you away from thinking and feeling your authentic self is an issue. is the issue and should always be viewed. All right. So the 3 hurdles of healing. 1, a lack of self-awareness. That means you lack the ability to connect or have other people communicate with you in a transparent, candid manner. So that's 1. 2, you believe you should be further, right? You have what's called age-based goals. So those are shoulds. I should be at 35. I should be married. I should be at certain age. I should be have a kid. I should not go through this. I should not be itching. I should not keep going down this road. Anytime you put in a should or I could have did, if I had only did that, if I could have did that. Anytime you put in a could or a should, you're having a problematic relationship with yourself. And that problematic relationship with yourself is only keeping you in your harm. And then the last thing, or the hurdles, are distractions. Anything that keeps you from focusing on your healing process is a distraction. Church, volunteering at church, going to Bible study, anything that is providing you the opportunity to deal with something else rather than dealing with yourself is a problem. All right, so the 5 steps of healing: reveal yourself. 2, have compassion for yourself. 3, understand that you have a new reality. 4, restructure your life, which basically means, it may be time for you to cut people off. And 5, give yourself the permission to thrive, although your wounds still heal. Woo! All right. So that was pretty much it. Thanks everybody for listening. My 3 to 5 listeners that I think is just 2. My 2 listeners. Shout out to Joy, as well as I think my other listener is Grandma Ellen. I think that's my regular. If you can join me every week from 12 to 1. One day I'm gonna get this technology taken care of. In the new year, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to be a little bit more purposeful. So as time goes on, I'm going to get a little better at this, and hopefully I get a little bit more or see a little bit more or get out a little bit more or whatever have you. But I really appreciate you guys listening. I really appreciate you guys taking your time to communicate, to be with me, and just to, tell me, even, just for a minute that, hey, I can't, like my man Rob said, hey, Mob, I can't hear you. So I appreciate you. Next week, we got Brother to Brother, where we bring in, I think, Ivra and Dorian. Dorian may be stepping away, but definitely Ivra coming in and spending some time, and we're going to talk about some stuff related to black men. So we're going to take the barbershop, and we're going to put it into the booth here. All right? Thank you guys again. I appreciate you. Look me up on YouTube. It's Unapologetic. IG, it is, Talk to E King. Facebook, it is Mental and Emotional Wellness Centers of Ohio. All that fun stuff. And that text is my direct line if you ever need to talk or if you ever need some help in, getting some assistance. Don't forget to text me. All right. I'll catch you later. Peace.